Speaking of how things go over in locker rooms, how does this change go over in the Steeler locker room? I get the impression from the quotes from the players the other day that it was kind of the way that we thought. I won't speak for you, that I thought it was, Ron, which was there's a dynamic hanging over this team of our leader and captain isn't really our leader and captain. There's another guy here who's the guy, and we all know it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think football players, especially the offensive linemen, okay, those are the key guys for me. They have the mentality of, whoever is our leader, we're going to follow. We don't care who it is, we're going to follow blindly even. And I think they feel that way. If it was Trubisky, they feel that way. It's Pickett now. Maybe some of the wide receivers who don't feel like they've been targeted enough. Maybe Pickens is thrilled about this move. I don't know. But I think most football players, at least the linemen I know, are bred to follow their leader. And now it's Pickett, so they're going to line up behind him and jump on board with him.
Don't you wonder, though, if those guys have a preference? Sort of like hockey players with a goalie. Like hockey players will always just, bust it for anybody who's in goal.
Right.
But I think they have a preference.
Maybe.
I wonder. And if they did, I just get the vibe that it's Pickett. I do. That those guys are happy. Maybe it's just not even personal. They're happy to know, all right, this was going to be the guy. We got that over with. Let's move ahead with the guy that everyone knew was going to lead this football team eventually. Wonder if there's even a sense of relief somehow in that room that now we can move forward with the guy that Tomlin texted players, hey, we got our guy when he drafted Pickett. We're there now. Now we can move ahead without the lame duck thing hanging over us.
Nice you brought up Duck there.
Can you imagine if they signed Duck for next year?
Did you like that horse? He brought up Duck, the lame duck.
He was a lame duck by the Jets game, wasn't he?
Again, how do you think that they drafted Pickett? Now, I this is the first I've heard of this, Joe, so you clarify for me. Tomlin sent out texts to players?
Yes.
How do you think that made Trubisky feel?
I don't know.
Man, all of a sudden, we got our quarterback now. We're ready to move ahead. They had just signed Trubisky a month earlier.
Let me find that story.
I'm sure I'm not disputing you at all. I just don't ever remember hearing that.
Neat. Do you remember that story coming out?
I remember something similar to that. Was that right after it was like a day after the
draft?
draft?
Would have to been right after the draft, right?
Yes.
The immediate reaction. I can't remember the details.
Man, how do you think that made Pickett feel? I'm Pickett. Trubisky.
No.
Very sad, I think. But let me find the story. Hold on. I'll find the story in a minute here.
Going back to the players, though, and
yes.
if they back one guy or not, I don't know. I get a sense that a lot of those guys can see through the facade a little bit. They can see through the charade of the whole Mitch Trubisky starting the first 3 games. Like, everybody knew what was bound to happen, that it was going to be Kenny Pickett eventually. And so, yeah, I agree, Joe. I think there is a kind of like, all right, now it's finally happened. Now we're on the other side of what that transition was going to be. Now we can move forward.
I mean, it would have been, of course, a different story if they were 3-1 or 4-0 and the offense was humming and this guy came in. I'm sure there are stories like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Dolphins players loved that guy, and he was playing pretty well when it was 2 a time.
He was.
So I think in that room there may have been more of a sense of, what are we doing here? Moving on to Tua. I don't get that sense here.
I don't get that sense either. I mean, I don't get this. What are we doing here? I think the players understand. But I do believe from enough offensive linemen, they're just so programmed to follow whoever the quarterback is.
Yeah. No doubt about that. Other Steeler questions that abound here in the wake of the Tomlin news conference. Let me go over some of these issues that he was talking about, Ron. First, the injuries. They've got Josh Allen coming up. They've got Edmonds in concussion protocol. Minka has a knee that quote, needs to be managed. Sutton has a groin and a hamstring.
That doesn't sound good.
Which is helpful to have both of those.
Witherspoon already out.
Hayward has an elbow and an ankle. Oh, my God. What if they go in there with 3 or 4 guys compromised or missing, not including T.J. Watt? They could put up 50.
He said something else about Watt that I thought was interesting. Somebody said, ask him about Watt is on IR for a couple more weeks. And Tomlin said, yeah, he's on IR for a couple more weeks. He's eligible to come back against Miami. Does that mean no? Tampa Bay, the next game, but he said he's on it for a couple more weeks. Does that mean he's not going to be back after 4 weeks? That was my interpretation.
I thought about that a little
I don't
bit
know.
too when he said that.
That didn't hit
He
me
was
the way
just
it hit
he
you
was
guys.
just repeating.
Yeah.
Somebody said, "Well, can you give us an update?" The guy goes, TJ's on IR for a couple more weeks, and Tomlin goes, "Yes, he is."
Yeah.
And then the guy goes, "Can you give us an update?" He goes, "He's on IR for a couple more weeks." So
Interesting.
I'm thinking he's eligible to come out off the Tampa Bay game, but that leads me to believe maybe it won't be the Tampa Bay game.
Well, Tomlin was also asked whether Pickett would be, quote, more aggressive in the way he played. There were other questions where Tomlin disagreed with the premise of the question. On this one, he did not. He let the premise stand, and he said the tape and his play will tell that story. If I have to read into that, I read into it that Tomlin doesn't think, and there have been other clues to this, doesn't think that Trubisky took full advantage of opportunities that were there.
Right. The thing he disagreed with was the audibling. The guy goes, we're under the understanding Trubisky wasn't always able to audible, and he goes, I don't agree with that assessment. So that was interesting.
I thought that could
that was a blatant contradiction to what Trubisky said.
Right. I would like to have heard at some point a follow-up to that went, did Mitch have 50% freedom to audible? Like, what was he totally free? And does Pickett have the exact same power and leeway? Or did the veteran guy have more or less? How does that work?
I don't know.
Because there's a lot of confusion, Mike, out there in public as to how this works. And it becomes reason for people to attack you and your offensive coordinator, by the way.
And he'd probably just say, hey, I don't care about the noise. Let him attack us. But, yeah.
That's fine. He can answer any way he likes.
It's a good question. He flat out disputed what Trubisky had said just a week earlier. I don't even know what plays I'm allowed to audible on.
And Trubisky wasn't shy either about taking a shot at Canada. There was an absolute, like Trubisky, and I don't know that this is not true, but he has a reputation of being this wonderful, nice man that everybody adores. There's got to be a side to him, and I think we saw it after the game, and this is not a criticism of him, that is short, that can get ticked off. Everybody has that side, right? And he came right out and took a shot at Canada a couple weeks ago when they asked him about the middle of the field, and he said, yeah, it would take a scheme to call plays there, right? What do we really know about Trubisky? You know, all these guys have reputations one way or another.
All we know
and
is
a lot of times it's not even real.
All we know is that the train is headed out of town.
Isn't that sad, Folsey?
The Trubisky train.
So my point is, Ron, what's it really like with him and Pickett? What's it really like with him and Tomlin? I bet you it's been pretty ugly the past couple days if they've seen each other.
I'll bet it has too.
Or will be. And I bet that room's going to be mighty frosty. There's going to be ice forming on the windows. They need Folsey in there as a mediator.
I don't know what his relationship is with Pickett.
How would you pick the breadcrumbs of that? Like we did with, well, it was obvious with Ben and Mason. Like you said, Ben would go over to Dobbs. They obviously had a good relationship. I was in the locker room back in those days, and I could see they did.
Ben had a good relationship with every quarterback he played with, except Mason.
Except the guy they drafted to replace him.
Gradkowski and he were very close. Yeah. Charlie and he were best friends, close. Obviously, Dobbs, not with Mason, no. Maybe he felt, why he would feel threatened by him, I don't know. But
he was the only guy who was brought to this organization with the idea he would one day replace Ben.
Right. Now, the year before, they drafted Dobbs in the 4th round, but they didn't say we had a first-round grade on him.
There was no thought to Dobbs being the guy.
During the break, I'm going to find the quote about what Pickett said about Trubisky when he was asked after the game.
Yeah, he said he's the nicest guy in the world, and he was supportive, Ron.
I'll read you the quote.
I remember the quote. He said he was the nicest guy in the world.
All right, then I won't waste time go looking for it. That's what he said, and we can just paraphrase.
I know what he said, Ron. He said, was he helpful the same way he always is? What a wonderful guy on the sidelines. He offered all his help.
Maybe our listeners weren't privy to that quote.
All right. Ron, can you go find the quote of what Pickett
No,
lied
no.
about? What
Pickett-
Pickett
no,
lied
human na-
about?
human-
About what Pickett lied about with Trubisky?
Human nature says I'm not going to help you. I'm sorry.
This is how
Wow.
unwittingly we recreated the Pickett Trubisky dispute.
You just humiliated me, so I'm not going to do anything nice for you.
That's how human nature works,
It is.
Ron.
It is.
Folsey?
Pickett's riding the Trubisky train for now, right? I think you guys are kind of friends.
I think you guys need
Pickett.
you need to do a new Pickett train.
If Pickett
Pickett
tried
plane.
to board the Trubisky train right now, they would throw his luggage off and kick him in the nuts. There it goes. It ain't like that anymore.
Trubisky
No, it isn't.
A
You were
lot has
so
changed.
happy.
I was so happy that day.
And he was happy because Lanny Fratteri was sitting
Lanny
right there.
Fratteri was here. The thing that, I mean, let's face it, it was just a stab in the dark. Trubisky, of all the people months before that, yeah, they should sign Trubisky. There were 18 people out there.
It was Pompiani's
Jameis
idea.
Winston, it was
Pompiani's
definitely
idea.
Pompiani's idea. Marcus Mariota. There were a million people they could have gone with. They could have waited till the draft, and they went with Trubisky. And Lanny Fratteri just happened to wander in that
No
day.
doubt about it.
There was. Do we have that, Falsey?
Yes, we do. Hang on one second.
One of the greatest days in show history.
When he waltzed into the studio.
We were young and foolish then. It's the Trubisky train.
There was no doubt about it.
He didn't even know who Trubisky was.
He did not know who Trubisky was.
And he was very reluctant to give that no doubt about it.